Hi, welcome back on board. This is the 7th in a series of video blogs we did on a trip up the east coast from Adelaide through to Cairns and finally to the Daintree and Cape Tribulation. The run from this morning was from Cairns up along the coast road to Port Douglas. An exceptionally great piece of road to ride, just the scenery, the road itself, and of course hugging along the coast of far north Queensland. It just doesn't get any better than this. We got away fairly early and luck would have it that the weather was with us today. A little bit of overcast weather sitting in behind us, and that came in later in the day, but all in all it was a great day. From Cairns up through to Palm Cove, as I said, the road runs pretty well right along the edge of the coastline, and there was some spectacular scenery. Did a couple of diversions off onto a few lookouts and a couple of side roads up into the mountains, but in general it was a fairly straightforward run through to Port Douglas, where we spent a bit of time looking around, catching up with coffee and lunch, and checking out Port Douglas. We'd been to Port Douglas once before, many years ago, and it was fair to say it hadn't changed a great deal, except perhaps along the foreshore and the marina area. It just seems to get bigger every year. But a really interesting place, and you get the opportunity to stay there. There's certainly heaps to look at. There's everything from fishing charters, sailing charters out around the Whitsunday Islands, and just a mega tourist spot in the season. Once again, a little bit quiet during the week, but it picked up over the last couple of days that we sort of came and went from Port Douglas on various little rides that we did in the area. It's easy to see how everybody says, if you go up to the Queensland, you've got to do the coast road along from Cairns to Port Douglas, and it certainly is not a disappointing road. Some fantastic lookouts down along the coast, and as I said, it just hugs the coastline all the way through. There's a mix of coastal views, rainforest that you ride through, heaps of really good beaches that you can stop at, and as I said, fairly quiet in general most of the way. Obviously the lookout points were busy, a few bikes coming and going here and there, and didn't see an awful lot of touring bikes throughout our trip. It's fair to say, saw a few guys on BMWs here and there, but once again, probably the most prominent riders on the road were the Harley-Davidson fraternity. Hats off to those guys. We saw so many of them, even in conditions that were belting down with rain. I can remember fueling up at one stage, and even though the bike's got a fairly good fairing, I was fairly wet from about the waist up, and I looked out and there was two guys rolled in on on Harleys, and these guys were absolutely soaked to the bone. I thought, you poor bastards. But anyway, they kept on trucking and we did our thing going north, and as I said, there's nothing you can do about changing the weather, but when you get a day like today, it just makes it such a worthwhile experience, and all the things that I just love about touring on my bike and seeing places like the far north Queensland. put in a few pictures of the coast road from aerial view. Not mine, unfortunately, but it gives a fairly good representation of what that road looks like cruising through along the coast. As I said, Port Douglas was our stop for lunch, and we poked around there for quite a while, and then we're making our way up. I did a little diversion run after Port Douglas up to the top of Mount Rex, and did a bit of video footage along that road and a few lookouts, and then came down, had a quick coffee in Mossman, and then went out to the Mossman Gorge. Surprisingly enough, for the day it was really busy up there, and they run a shuttle bus up to a couple of lookouts, which was a little bit of farting around, and I didn't do too much filming. We're too busy trying to get on and off little tourist buses, but certainly some fantastic scenery up there. This is just a bit of footage coming back from Mount Rex. As you can see, there were some fairly good lookouts to go, fairly good look and view out over the coastline. As I said, from there I continued back down towards Mossman, and there was a couple of little turn-offs which I went down and farted around here and there. As I said, Mossman was a quick stop there for a cup of coffee before heading out to that Mossman Gorge. From Mossman we tramped up the highway a bit further into the Daintree. We'd booked a cabin, sort of sat pretty well right on the beach and towards the end of the Daintree River as it opened out into the open ocean. Great little spot, all palm trees and everything around us, and really quite secluded place. Did quite a few sort of eco and various tours on boats and four-wheel drives around the Daintree for a couple of days, and really spectacular stuff. I'd seen the crocodile thing up in the Northern Territory a few years ago, but they're always an amazing animal, and I learned one thing: if you're in the water and he's in the water, your history. We did some bird eco tours as well. As I said, my wife's pretty keen on photography and nature and so on, and some of it was some fairly amazing bits of waterways in amongst tributaries off the main Daintree River. We also went out a couple of days later out to the Daintree Rainforest Information Centre. Absolutely spectacular, and such a well laid out place. Climbed around the various walkways and had a look, and then finally went through to Cape Tribulation, the furthest point in our trip. We were away for about 8 weeks in total. Our return home was fairly straightforward. We came back down the coast, swung inland in New South Wales to bypass some of the flood areas, and then came home pretty well straight through Victoria back into Adelaide that way. It's a great part of the world up there. If you get the opportunity, jump on your bike, get into it and go and have a good look around, and you'll have a really great time, just like we did.